Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. Tax pros can use the IRS Tax Pro account to simplify authorization requests. Wow, that's great. Honestly, convincing the IRS that this e-signature thing is actually a good tool, one that they might want to actually implement, has been like trying to convince Pete Buttigieg to visit that Ohio train disaster, you know? Like, it's not impossible, but it does take President Trump humiliating him before he'll actually do it. And in the case of the IRS, it takes every other business utilizing the technology of the e-signature before they're like, hey, maybe that might be useful over here, you know? And speaking of convincing, trying to get Dr. Fauci to stop potentially lying about that COVID theory, that it came from a Chinese lab in like Wuhan, is like trying to get Hunter Biden to stop lying about his crack habit. You know, it's a battle that you just might not win. Unless, like, you have a whole laptop full of evidence or something, or multiple laptops of it, or whatever. You know, you gotta have a lot of stuff. Any case. But let's not forget that even the government is starting to admit that that COVID might have come from that lab in Wuhan, China. I mean, they got a low level of assurance on it, but they're actually saying, maybe. You know, maybe. You know, and if the government can admit that, maybe they'll eventually admit that what's coming out of Dr. Fauci's mouth is not, in fact, the distilled essence of science itself, but actually just a bunch of crap. And if that's the case, it would explain why he's so obsessed with masks, you know? He's just trying to keep the smell of his own BS from reaching his nose. You know, Dr. Fauci is like, well, the lab theory is not scientifically sound, you know? Because it's culturally insensitive. I mean, the idea of Chinese scientists having a modern accident in a high-tech lab, the lab possibly funded by us, just paints the wrong image of the Chinese. My theory is much more palatable and sensitive, says Dr. Fauci. And it's just like, you know, some Chinese dude probably went to a wet market and traded like a half-eaten fish, you know, for a raw bat or something. At which point he probably just grabbed the raw bat out of the slimy goo it was in and proceeded to bite the bloated, pus-filled, COVID-infected head off. You know, like some kind of barbarian heathen. And because that's the more culturally sensitive theory, it must be the more scientific one, obviously. And it's like, please put your mask back on, Dr. Fauci. You know, Dr. Fauci's like, look, I'm not willing to throw my theory in the trash just because of, quote, evidence, end quote. I mean, what is evidence compared to me? Science incarnate. It's like, come on, Dr. Fauci. We've all seen you throw. You're not capable of throwing anything in the trash, for crying out loud. I mean, give me a break. But let's not dwell on that too much. Instead, let's focus on the fact that the fallout from the policies is going to be remembered historically as a lockdown catastrophe, not a pandemic crisis. It's like the government tried to fix a leaky faucet by blowing up the whole house. Sure, the leak is fixed, but now we're homeless. Oh, wait a second. Look at that pipe that's sticking out of the dirt over there. It's still leaking.